I kind of think the more conversation we can stir, the more growth that is going to happen in the industry, right? And I'm not just talking about like the blowing smoke type of conversation, like, oh, well, have you heard there's a labor shortage? Yeah, okay, thanks. I appreciate that. Like that's not actually solving the problem. Robotics is something I'm really looking at hard right now. I think we're gonna have to automate or have cobotics or something like that to keep up with, I'm going to say the labor shortage that we have. The two words. We're not going to be able to fill our workforce up fast enough to make up for the gap. It's not going to happen. It's too late. It's too late. We reacted too late.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Everybody's acting like, oh, we got to get more people in. Okay, fine. But we reacted too late.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks and Bytes podcast, where we dive into construction and AEC technology. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology, and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode.
All right, Tyler Campbell.
What's up, Owen?
How good to finally be on a podcast with you.
I know, man. It's been needing to happen for just a little while now. But watching you from afar, keeping an eye on you.
I'm glad you said it. Yeah, you were always one of those people where I saw you on LinkedIn and I was like, one day I will reach out to Tyler. And it was just like, I keep seeing you, and then kept saying that every single time I saw you. I was like, yeah, I'm probably never really going to. And then I don't know what happened. I guess just one day we decided like, let's chat.
Yeah. I think you commented on one of my posts and you were like, yeah, I'd love to hang out. I'm like, yeah, dude, let's go. Like, here's my calendar. Let's chat. I love it. So,
do you know what's funny? Also is that we used, I guess like a few years into the podcast where I started Bricks and Bytes, we were always like, who are the best podcasts? We used to speak to people like, who are the best podcasts in construction that we can, I don't know if the right word is emulate or get inspiration from perhaps. Yeah. And everyone always used to say Construction Brothers podcast. And I was like, yeah, exactly. So then I was like, okay, cool. So this is who we've got to beat.
Yeah, beat it. I don't care. At this point, like, I think when I first started, I was really competitive about the whole thing. I was like, I'm gonna beat everybody. Like, I remember like looking at Content Crew, and now they're buddies. Like, now they're all friends, and I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna topple that beast. And then like, I don't even know anymore. I'm like, I don't really care about the metrics, because at this point, it's so cool to be able to talk to people out there in the industry trying to do different things and learn from them. It's been a masterclass it's opened so many doors. Like, as I'm sure you're aware, like starting a podcast just opens the doors for all sorts of learning and the inside track on like what is happening in the industry. What are the friction points? And so, dude, it's become like this, oh yeah, we're getting really competitive and we're going to own the space too. Yeah, we don't really care. We just want to talk to cool people, and it is what it is, and I love staying there. I'm a lot happier. So
yeah.
Competitiveness is what I'm saying, Owen. Don't get too competitive. It's not worth it.
I like it. Do you know what? I think that my conclusion definitely over the last, goodness me, 6 months or so, and I'm strongly in belief that construction is extremely fragmented. So there's never going to be one podcast that's like that captures everyone, because like the people on site using tools are not going to listen to the guys talking about a podcast which focuses on innovation within corporate construction. So
Yes. Yeah.
and everyone in between. Like then within the construction world, you've got people that are building projects, you've got people that are designing projects, you've got people that are just consultants, which might be giving advice on a specific area of a project, and they
Yeah.
all have differing interests. So whilst everyone's always says like, oh, it's a 13, 14 trillion dollar industry, it's like, actually, yes, there is a big opportunity. However, it is so fragmented that your chances of capturing the whole market are very slim. Now you can build a good content and good business, but one to lead all. I'm not sure you'll get like the Joe Rogan of the construction industry.
Wouldn't it be nice, to be bought by Spotify? Maybe one day, but I don't see that in the cards happening anytime soon. But yeah, you're right though. Like there's so many different facets in the construction industry, and I kind of think the more conversation we can stir, the more growth that is going to happen in the industry, right? And I'm not just talking about like the blowing smoke type of conversation, like, oh, well, have you heard there's a labor shortage? Yeah, okay, thanks, I appreciate that. Like that's not actually solving the problem. Like it's fine to spread awareness, but I feel like there's so much awareness that has already been spread. Now we need to get into this phase of like, okay, we're aware that there's a problem. Now what are we going to do about it? And I think it's going to take conversations that happen, not even necessarily on podcasts, but the conversations that can be facilitated through podcasts. Because, I mean, dude, like you and I, before we hop on here, we're talking about, businesses and what we're doing and like how we might be able to help each other and all of that. And that's the kind of stuff that happens when you podcast. And I think more people in more niches need to do it because it stirs conversation and it makes the whole industry stronger. My background is in steel construction. I don't understand everything that happens in the industry. I just don't. My background is in steel. I have a very narrow focus of the industry. But man, whenever I started a podcast, it started opening up avenues and I started understanding more. And I started getting more empathy for, like owners and architects and engineers. Well, maybe not as much architects, but, I started getting empathy for people up and down the chain that I used to kind of grumble at before we started our show. And now I'm realizing, this is a very complex problem and it's going to take a village to solve a lot of the issues that we have identified. Now let's get to work. Like, let's put our head down. Let's try to solve some of this stuff now.
Yeah, 100% agree. What were some of the things, maybe if you could explain like, why you started Construction Brothers podcast, and then what are some of the things that came out of that, which when you started were like totally unexpected or unforeseen? And I can tell you that for me has happened on so many times and such a scale at Bricks and Bytes that I guess because you're putting yourself out there and producing content, all this stuff comes to you and people are like, oh, will you do this? Will you do that? Why don't you do that? It's actually very difficult. And whilst like by no stretch of the imagination have we figured it out yet, there's so much opportunity that comes our way. And I think maybe this is part of the problem. It's so difficult to say no, and therefore very difficult to stay focused on one thing, which perhaps in like hinders your growth. So how do you feel about that?
It's an ADHDer's worst nightmare, I'll tell you that. Like, there's always something to do. Always something to distract you, I should say. So for like how we started the show and everything, we started it by we had kind of talked about how are we going to market our business, ABSI. It's the family business, is a BIM company, and so Eddie and I are working in it, and our dad's an owner in it too, and so like we just kind of were talking like how can we just kind of get our names out there and stuff, and this idea bubbled to the surface. It's probably Eddie, but I'll take credit for it was my idea. That it was hey, let's start a podcast, like this is pretty fun, and so I honestly, I think I just got the company credit card and I just went ahead and bought a bunch of equipment.
Oh man.
Like I was like, hey, Eddie, I like walked into his office and I was like, hey bro, hey, so I ordered a bunch of podcast equipment and he was like, how much did you spend? I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't worry.
It's on the credit card.
On the credit card. And he's like, crap, Dad's going to give me so much grief for this. And so, we show up and the equipment shows up, and we did our first episode, and it was complete crap. Like, it was just Eddie and I just in a back room somewhere in the dark, talking and like goofing off like brothers do. And
what year was this?
yeah, that was 2019. So
okay.
it's been some time. And so we started that way, and then we got our first interviews, and we started talking to guys like Clifton Harness, and then Kimono Numa, and which Kimono is incredibly insightful about the industry and architecture. We started talking to guys like Roy Underhill, who was like a PBS star growing up, which was hilarious. Public broadcasting service. It's like the local channels, right? So we got to talk to him, and like quickly it went from, we want to market our business, to, wait a second, screw marketing our business. This is a gold mine of just insight for us, and so we flipped the script around, and we said, all right, well, instead of it being marketing for ABSI, how about we just explore things? How about we just keep talking to cool people? And we realized during that process, man, like, we're so stupid. We're so stupid. We don't know anything about anything in the industry, but there's so many smart people out there. And so for us, it became about amplifying voices. It also became feedback loop, which is something that Clifton Harness said in like one of our first episodes. He's like, we need an industry feedback loop. We need feedback that flows up the chain and down the chain, so that we can understand like the problems that everybody's facing. And we kind of just took that as our mantle, and we ran with it. And it was so exciting to just see all of the people get behind it and push us out there into the space, and just support the cause. So, and that's really how we started, man. It's just it's stumbling our way through, figuring crap out, not having. Honestly, I wish we had a better strategy, but we didn't, and there for a while it was like, we're going to rule the entire podcast space. We're going to be the construction podcasters. That is going to be us. And we pushed pretty hard, and we grew.
Yeah, you didn't do too bad.
We didn't do bad. And I'm proud of what we've done. And so, but beyond that, man, it's become, I look back at like some of the friendships that I've gained from it. Like, the listens and all of that stuff, whatever. But the friendships that I've gained out of it have been life-giving to me. They've been something that I continue to lean on. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say screw being the biggest podcaster in the room, man. Just go make friends and, try to solve problems. And that's, I love that part of being able to speak into the industry.
Did you, because and now you are doing a FieldProof. So did you find, well, do you think FieldProof could have existed without doing the podcast?
No, I don't think it could have. I needed to understand the technology space a little bit deeper. And I don't even think that FieldProof could have existed without me running a video company that served some of these tech companies and seeing kind of the inside baseball of how things get done. So I think a lot of the stuff that I've done, where, detailing steel, using the tech every day, using a lot of tech every single day, being that practitioner, to talking to a lot of people in the industry, educating myself more on the industry and some of the challenges out there, and then running another company where I served those technology companies, and seeing that, I feel like I've kind of like done this full story arc that has led me here. I don't think I could have jumped straight from my job as a detailer into doing this. I just wasn't ready yet. Still not completely ready, but it's a lot more aligned around the issues that I've seen firsthand with technology companies. So it's cool, man. Like, I'm pretty pumped about it.
Is there a particular, like, what kind of content was most what was the best episodes or best forms or types of content that you released that resonated the most with your audience?
I would say probably the Amy Morin episode is one of our most listened to. And then also a superintendent speaks. So it's kind of two different ends of the spectrum. One side of it is Amy Morin, who's like a TED speaker. She's interviewed like Matthew McConaughey on her podcast, and then she wrote a book. It's Secrets of Being Mentally Strong, I think is the name of it. I probably butchered it, but it's been a while since we've interviewed her.
Yeah.
she she came on and she just talked about mental toughness, and I feel like people were looking for things like that. Like, how can I be more mentally engaged for my job in the construction industry? Because it's hard out there, man. It's difficult to be in construction. And so that's one of our most listened to episodes, because I think people are just seeking for like, hey, is there a hack or is there a thing that I can do to, make my life a little bit less hectic? And, it's always just like the practical things. Are you taking care of yourself? Like, are you eating well? Are you drinking enough water? Things like that. Like it's simple, but people really took to that. And then the other one was a superintendent speaks, and that was Matt Haskins. And he runs a smaller construction company now. He started that up in I think Minnesota, and people just hearing the horror stories and the war stories that he had of just like, hey, here's what it's like on the front lines of some of these big projects, working with GCs. People are just morbidly curious about that sort of thing, which I love, dude. I love it so much. And Matt's like I think he recorded one other podcast, mass construction show before he came on ours. And so he's like, he's not a podcaster. He's a super, he's like, yeah, sure, I'll record. And he just started spitballing, and to this day, he's still a buddy. I text him occasionally, check in, but it's funny. Like, people just want to see and hear stuff, not from necessarily the technology companies themselves. They don't really care about that. A lot of that marketing is being pushed out there into the space, and it's kind of weak, and people don't resonate with it. The stuff that we found that hits, that really resonates with people, that gets maybe gets a like, maybe gets a reshare, maybe gets a reaction, and like actually gets talked about, is the stuff that's a little more harsh. It's the stuff that gets said really behind closed doors, or the stuff that gets said in a job trailer somewhere, or in an office at the job site. That's the type of stuff people resonate with, because I think it's like people see, like, they'll see that Matt said something negative about tech, and then they're just like, oh my gosh, yes, me too. And it's just kind of a relief of like, somebody finally said it, and I think that it's funny. We had our dad on our show too. That was actually another listened to episode.
That's cool.
And dad's a GC, and has been in the industry his whole life. And dad just went crazy. Like he went full on, like, this is crap, this is crap, this is crap. Like, he started dishing. And man, I think that was probably like one of our most watched LinkedIn videos, and it had like thousands and thousands and thousands of views, and hundreds of comments. And so much conversation, but it was a split camp too. Because on one side you had the guys, the gals in the field saying, heck yeah, he's right. And then you had the other people who, some are in office, I'll say, and then a lot of them are in tech, saying, oh, no. And I'm like, look, I'm looking at that and I'm going, the feedback loop is not complete, guys. Like, we've got to keep spreading this information around so people become more aware of what's happening. And I think what Dad was talking about is like RFI. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I don't know if that's a US term or not.
But UK, yeah. Request for information,
okay. Yeah, you're right. So RFI, it was about that, and Dad basically saying like, it's essentially a weapon. And it's also, people use that as a way to delay a project. It's a delay tactic, I think is the wording that he used. And man, everybody blew up about it. But like I have seen this, many other people that I know that are still in industry have seen that. And it was amazing to see how many people said, well, that's just wrong. I'm like, yeah, we're not saying that it's right. We're just saying that some people do this and you should be aware of it. So that's the kind of stuff that I love. But yeah, so there's my 30-minute answer for a small
the perverse incentives of the construction industry. I think a lot
Yes.
of that boils down to how contracts are set up. And I love the debate. There's so many interesting, you could really go down a rabbit hole with this about how contracts, people price contracts or price their bids very low on the fact that they know that they're going to make their margin up.
Change orders.
We call them variations over here in the UK, and so on and so forth. Yeah,
that happens a lot. Happens a lot in government work, especially around here too, because they're using that 3 bids and a buy sort of thing based off of like local law tells them they have to do like the 3 bids and a buy, and so they'll get the low bid. They'll take that low bid, and then they'll just snowball that into tons of change orders down the line.
Yeah.
It's massively abused here too.
And I've also seen more recently, which I can't validate. I can validate the first one because I've been in it for so long, and it's bane of a lot of my existence. But the second one is the claim that people, like some general contractors exist, and their business model is to get into a dispute and make money out of the award that comes as a result of the settlement of the lawsuit. So so like they'll just go in. Maybe it's kind of similar, but like they'll go in day one. Okay, here's tons of delays on our project, and now we need X amount of reimbursement because our project's been delayed and we're incurring overheads and we're losing profit and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And I find that absolutely fascinating. And do you know what I also learned as well in recent times? I met a guy last November, and I just maybe this is obvious to people that work in the larger construction and part of the industry. But from day one, on any project they take on, they have a claims team on site, 3 or 4 people just preparing the documentation to put a claim in, or vice versa to protect themselves against the claim, depending on who he's acting for. He's a consultant and he does this on behalf of companies. And I was like, that's absolutely ridiculous. Like, what a waste of money. What a waste of like everyone's time and effort. And so like,
and it's a wonder why like we don't end the project well. You know what I mean? Like, and everybody's frustrated at each other, and we're in this like combative war zone on so many projects. Like, I mean, when you go in with that mindset, or maybe you come in completely fresh and you're excited about the industry, you're fresh out of college, and you've got all of this like, oh, the world is my oyster sort of mentality when you come into construction, like, I'm going to make it a better place. And then you come up against something like that. What does that do? Like, it starts to change you over time if you deal with that stuff enough, if you don't counterbalance that with good stuff. And so then we get in this place where people's mental health suffers. We get back into, back into Amy Moore and stuff, right? Like we're drinking too much, we're overeating, we're trying to self-soothe with these bad things, and that just drives us further into this bad place in our industry. And like, I think there's some awareness around that needs to be spread, but I haven't heard about that specific thing with GCs. I have heard though, I believe my dad told me this. I'd have to think a little bit harder, but he's basically telling me about there's one guy who would go out and he would get awarded projects, and then he would bankrupt the company after he got paid.
I've heard similar things actually.
I'm like, what the heck, man? That's crazy.
Yeah.
People do that.
I have
Yeah.
definitely, I can definitely vouch for that. People, or they do certain things with their company formations so they don't have to pay tax
Yeah.
or whatever. There's
Yeah.
also within the construction, we're really getting into it now. There's also this thing within the UK construction industry called smash and grab. Have you ever heard of that?
I know the term, but I
Mm.
don't know if I know exactly what the technique is.
Yeah, so I've actually been
Yeah.
involved with one of these in my life before, and it's not a pleasant experience. But
Yeah.
what you can do, so in British law, there are rules whereby it's called the Construction Act, and the purpose of this law or statute, as we call it over here, is to enable ensure that contractors get paid on time.
Yeah.
So there's this underlying law whereby if you are working on a construction project, any construction doesn't need to be a formal contract in place. This is like the default position. If you're
Yeah.
involved in any kind of like undertaking of work for someone that involves construction, you'll be under this law. And
Mm.
what you do, what happens is you can put in a application for payment. So you can say to your client, right, we've done £100,000 of work this month, and as soon
Mm-hmm.
as you release that piece of paper to the client, there's a time scale they need to respond to you in. Now, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's like 14 or 30 days or something along those lines.
Okay.
If the client does not send a notice to you within that period to say, no, we do not agree with your assessment, we think it should only be 50,000, by default, you owe them the £100,000. So I've been involved in projects whereby people have thrown in a claim, say 500K,
Yeah.
and the relevant notice had not been sent out in time. Therefore, that 500K becomes payable to the person that put that application for payment in by default, whether they're owed it or not. Whether they have, so they might have only carried out £10,000 of work, but they might be like, "Hey, I just don't like this
Dang.
client. Yeah, I don't like this client. I'm just going to throw you a massive bill, or my business model is just to do this, fold the business, and go and do it again to someone else." Like I have been in the thick of that before, and it's
What?
absolutely awful. Yeah, and
That,
yeah, and it gets awarded. You read all this case law, and it gets awarded. The money gets awarded.
so maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but are you able to just like, let's say I send you an invoice. We don't even have any sort of professional agreement.
Yeah.
And yeah, here's an invoice, and you just don't respond for 14 days or whatever it is, and then you immediately owe me that, whether or not we've even communicated on I'm doing something for you.
Yeah. Maybe basically you would have to be like undertaking work. You couldn't just like come up to me in the middle of
Okay,
the street and be like, "Oh,
here's your invoice.
I screwed a nail in your wall. I screwed a screw in your wall. Here's my invoice." And there are fallbacks.
Okay.
There are fallbacks like um um you get awarded so someone else can come in and do like an independent assessment of the work, and you get
Right.
awarded. It's called quantum merit, where you're paid for the work's complete.
Mm-hmm.
But it rarely ever gets to that point because just because of complications and costs of legal fees and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. So you do get into situations where there's like a few hundred thousands or millions on the table, which just have to be awarded because a letter
Yeah.
has not been issued in time, or a notice hasn't been issued in time, which I find absolutely mind blowing.
So I have a question for you. What do you feel like? I mean, because you're talking to people in the UK and you're also talking to people in the US too, right? What do you feel like are the biggest kind of differences between the two construction marketplaces?
Okay, now you're gonna hear
That's a
shit.
ball of wax, I know, but like, what are kind of the key things that are different?
First thing that come to mind is how far advanced US when it comes to technology are compared to the UK. Some people won't agree with me when I say that, but we see it. We speak, like you say, we speak to people on both sides of the fence, and I think a lot of this comes down to US mindset. A lot of people like US, their culture is more about celebrating failure. So people are encouraged to take risks and push the boundary. And if you fail, it's like, "Oh man, you gave it a go, like well done. Like that was a really good effort. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but let's go and build the next thing and try again." And so you'll find that the companies over there, like prime example is general contractors. How many of them have corporate venture capital arms because they're like actively trying to push and adopt technology and incubate and so on and so forth. UK, name me a corporate venture capital arm that exists within a construction company. It doesn't. So that's like that's a true comparison between the two. In the UK, you take risk on a project or even in life generally, and people are like, whoa, why are you doing that? That's way too risky. Oh, come on. I want you to fail. I want you to fail. Then I can laugh at you. And then people are like, oh, people don't want to take risks. Like when you start your own business, like even like when you start your own business in the UK, people are like in the back of their mind not hoping that you fail, but like they haven't got your interests at heart. They're like, oh, it's risky. He's not going to be able to do that. Like, what do you think? You hear it in the gossip circles, like even amongst friends and family, like, why is he doing that? And I'm like, he's going for it. But even family members are like, no, that will never work out. And I'm like, well, obviously I have more of an American mindset when it comes to these things. But to the construction point specifically, mindset aside, I am very friendly with a project director in a very large contractor here in the UK. And his project is, let's say, in the hundreds of millions pounds. What tool do you think he uses to schedule his projects and forecast, like do his weekly forecasts on? I'll give you a clue. It exists in the Microsoft suite.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So I was wondering if it was Excel.
And I was like, okay, so do you not use some form of like ERP, like if you can call Procore or whatever, an ERP, like a project management suite of a software system? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, so what one we use? I won't say the name because I don't know, like maybe someone will find out who this person is. But and I was like, so yeah. And he's like, yeah, we do use one. And I was like, so what do you use it for? He's like, well, I use it to delete the reminders out of my email inbox. I have 500 and something reminders that a task is overdue or whatever. I'm like, oh my goodness me. So this is like Central London project, prestige project, amazing. So I don't think that happened. Maybe it does happen in the US, but I don't know.
No, it happens.
Yeah.
It happens for sure. It happens. We're not far from each other. I'll just say that. Like, I think your struggles over in the UK with mindset, like I think that's we do see some of that here. I think it just depends on the person though, right? I mean, I think we are a little less risk averse, I'll say, here in the States. Like there are definitely pockets of people that are just like, no, like we're gonna, move fast and fail and like do that whole thing, and we're okay with that. We're okay with losing some money on the way because the gains they'll catch up. So that is a lot more prevalent here in the States as far as like mindset is concerned. But you can find just as many people who are a lot more, we'll say like pragmatic about things, that are just going to be, I don't know if I want to take that risk. I'm getting ready to retire in 5 years. Why would I take this risk? My grandfather was a great example of this, right? Like he, and I love Pop. He's incredibly intelligent. But computers were just starting to like really hit mainstream whenever he was about ready to retire. And his mindset was like, no, I'm not going to learn it because I'm not going to be here. Right. But he still had a few more years in the industry before he quit. So he just kept doing the thing that he had always done. Now you contrast that with my dad, his son, who is like, no, I want to learn the new thing. He's like running around with ChatGPT on his farm trying to identify what kind of tree this is. Like it's ridiculous. Like he's taking pictures and like upload. So I think it's not an everybody statement. And I think we can get overly, and I've seen this again and again, and I've been guilty of it, of overly generalizing or being too broad with our statements about people or generations or things. Like, I think that, we talk about how, let's say Gen Z is really hard to manage, or whatever. Like, how often did we hear that? Even a few years ago, it was like, oh, these kids, they don't want to work. Off on that stuff. A lot of, the baby boomers and the Gen Xers. But the thing is like, I've met some Gen Zers that work their tails off, man. They work really, really hard, harder than a lot of other millennials or even Gen Xers or boomers. And so like to lob one generation or one country's population in and say like, we're just laggards because of this or that. Like, in some ways, because I mean, for every one of those laggards, we'll say there's like somebody like you who's willing to take the risk and step out and start a business. And I think we can overgeneralize it. So we got to take people a little bit one at a time. It's good to still kind of like get a status update on like, we're just generally moving. But man, a thing that was eye opening to me is that you look back at like some of the newspapers back in even the 40s and 30s. Headlines on those were like, people scared because kids don't want to work.
Yeah.
It's like we're in this cycle where we do the same things to ourselves over and over. And I'm worried that we're going to kind of get in that position with the construction industry too, in some ways, because we went from this self-perform mindset of general contracting where, we get the work and then we have the people internally that get the work done, right? We put the bricks and sticks in the ground and that's how we do our thing. And then we've migrated over into this contract basis where it's like more CM, right? Where you've got this GC, all they're doing is hiring that sub, and they're just pushing the money through and dealing with the owner and the architect or however.
Professional risk manager.
Right. And now what I'm seeing is kind of hilarious is because we've done that mindset for a long time. So we've forgotten, hey, we used to do the self-perform thing. And now I'm seeing people go like, hey, I've got this bright idea. We should do more self-perform. That's how we're going to differentiate ourselves. And so we're just like back into this cycle. It's just, we're more cyclical than I think that people realize.
Oh yeah. We go through generational shifts for sure as humanity.
We do.
I suppose it makes sense, right? Because you just look at any, like that's why cycles exist, because it's just the law of the universe, like what we go through. Hey, Tyler, you've been embedding yourself in the tech ecosystem of late. What's your kind of high level observation?
I think right now I'm seeing a lot of similar solutions. So if you think that your solution is really unique, I think I encourage you to take another peek and look around and challenge yourself to dig a little bit deeper. Because I kid you not, over the past month, I've had calls with quite a few companies that are like, yeah, this is groundbreaking. We're doing this and this and this and this and this. And they're laying it all out. And they're really impressed with themselves over what they've built. Fair enough. They're proud of the child that they've reared, that they've brought into the world. But then I'll get off of that call and I'll go to the next one, and the same pitch happens.
You're like, did I just speak to you?
Yeah, different logo, different colors. Some UI is better than the others, and all of the variety that exists. I'm seeing a lot of people building very similar things, even if they're bent in different ways, they're similar. And so that's been kind of striking to me. The other thing I'll say too is the connectivity to the people in the field has been overlooked. I say overlooked. It's the biggest challenge that we have right now. Because you think about how GCs, how subs, people in the office, what do they benefit from? It's data, right? It's data being put into their dashboard or into whatever the heck they're using. If you don't get people at the field level actually supplying you that data, like giving you stuff, you're dead in the water. What's the point of even having the system? And so I think incentivizing people to put the data into the application or put the data into the place where we can then use it in a variety of different ways is probably the biggest thing we've got to find out right now. Like, what's the carrot, or what's the cookie at the end of the task that they get as a result of taking a picture of that thing and uploading it to your service, or clocking in, clocking out, or reporting something, or updating this checkbox over here on this app. Like, what's the cookie that they get or the reward that they get for doing that thing? And I think there's no reward system for
Of
that.
course, yeah.
And so our data is suffering upstream as a result. And so that's another area that I think we're kind of weak at. It will, I think, naturally get better over time because people will want to use these systems. But even then, for somebody like me, who's just honestly, I'm really stupid predictable. I need to see that there's going to be a dopamine hit at the end of this. You know,
Wow, man, you're
I
not the
think
only
everybody,
one.
yeah, everybody kind of feels that way though, and that's what they solved in social media. Is that okay? I go on this app and I start scrolling and I see something that is fed to me through this algorithm, and I get a dopamine hit because I feel
Yeah,
like, and then you keep searching and you keep finding it. We don't have that sort of, this is going to sound bad. We don't have enough of an addiction to the apps that we're creating to get the
yeah,
data we need.
yeah. I think it's
Well, how we do that
incentives.
responsibly, I don't know.
Nah,
But
honestly,
just a thought.
I think like you say, well, I have two main thoughts on that. One is it comes down to money. Give people money and they will do it. Like
Yeah.
specifically tied to that task. So
Yeah.
I had an interesting discussion. I never come up with the idea before, but um it's like each day on your phone at like the end of your shift, you get like a notification and it will be on your phone. It will be like a swiping kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
Tinder, I guess, or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Swiping impact, and it asks you questions about what happened on your project that day. And like you swipe right, yes, swipe left, no, like, and it's tied to maybe your reality capture solution or whatever, just to
Yeah. Yeah.
verify, and so on and so forth. Um, and you're paid like whatever it might be, $1 per question. I don't know. Could be something simple. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
You obviously then you have to do some human experiment to like work out what the exact money is, and then people start moaning that they don't get enough. But if you can tie it
Yeah.
to money of some sort, then maybe that's the way to do it. And two
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
you automate the data collection process. I know there's tons of companies working on that now. One way is obviously through cameras on site, reality capture, walk-in robots with cameras attached to them that now are going through the sites. There's various companies popping
Mm-hmm.
up, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Or the other way is you change how you capture this data. And I think AI agents will be very interesting because people say that the interface within construction technology is broken.
Yeah.
So point and click or like asking people to fill out forms is very archaic. And so
Yeah.
we had another discussion recently, which I found fascinating. Was like, what if you had like an agent that called you at the end of your shift when you're driving home and was like, okay, Barry, whatever your name is, did this happen today? And you say yes. And and by the way, you have a crane scheduled to be installed tomorrow. Or so and so has didn't complete this part of work. Do you want me to put a calendar hold in your diary to make sure you speak to them to pick it up? So it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's like reducing
Yeah.
the friction either through
One
money,
of the,
technology, or
yeah.
other.
And there's kind of a mixed bag on that. When we interviewed some superintendents around speaking to their phone, right? You know, and interacting with voice, and it was kind of a mixed bag. It was kind of a, you know, some people were like, yeah, you know, I could do that. Others were just like, no, not really. I don't really like that. I feel uncomfortable about it, and so they don't want to talk to it, but they would probably be okay with text. And so I think there's this massive user experience issue that we're also challenged with in our industry is like, how do we make this something that, like you said, is like, okay, do you get $1 per interaction or per piece of data that you're able to supply back into the machine? Or is there a way that we can create an agent and agentically put this data back into our system? That's another area that I'm very excited about. That's another thing. I like robotics is something I'm really looking at hard right now. I think we're gonna have to automate or have cobotics or something like that to keep up with, I'm gonna say the labor shortage that we have. The two words. We're not going to be able to fill our workforce up fast enough to make up for the gap. It's not going to happen. It's too late. It's too late. We reacted too
Oh
late.
yes, 100%. Yeah.
everybody's acting like, oh, we got to get more people in. Okay, fine. But we reacted too late. So now we need to work smarter on this.
It has to happen, yeah.
It has to. And so in my mind, I think that we're going to have to do more with robotics, cobotics. And that's the area that I'm very excited with. But also there's another dynamic there of like, how are the field personnel that actually have the capacity to do the work, how are they going to feel about it? Because that's also a mixed bag. And so there's an education curve of like, we've got to re-educate our existing workforce into how to use robotics so that we can get this stuff done. And how do you incentivize them to do that? It's a tangled mess.
Yeah.
It feels like most days, right? Like it feels like a tangled mess, and it's exciting because it's a tangled mess that we can work to untangle. So like for me, I'm kind of pumped that it's gotten to this point. And I think a lot of other people are too. I think the first step is admitting, like, again, like we got to start talking to each other more. We've got to start understanding, like, how can we get the people in the field integrated into our processes? Because otherwise we're dead in the water. They still matter. We got to get those people in the field on board. And how can we do that? How can we do that? Young, old, everything in between. How can we influence them to take steps in helping us in this technological renaissance, as my brother puts it?
Yeah. It's an interesting debate. I think that well, like with labor shortage and robotics, something has to change. So I'm sure it will, whether that's for a generational shift or because we finally work out how to incentivize these people, or we have some form of technology which does it for us. Who knows?
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
What's the coolest robot you've seen to date? I'm curious.
Man, there's a few. So I can't remember the name of it. Well, there's a few ones that are interesting to me now. I can't remember the name of it. But I was reading an article earlier this week that there's this Chinese manufacturer, robotics company that has like a all encompassing construction robotic. Damn, I wish I could find the name of it. I only scanned over the article,
right?
Because I was not entirely convinced, and I was like, I'm almost certain that this is just crap. But
does it have like articulating arms and things like multiples, and it like rolls? Oh, I think I saw this.
It's not a humanoid or anything like that. It's
it's on tracks.
Yeah, I think it's on tracks. Yeah.
I know who you're talking about, and I think they actually stepped into the U.S. market recently too.
Possibly, but aside from them, I like the bricklaying robot only because I've seen it happening in real action because we were at the factory last year. But bricklaying robotics, I think are interesting. I think the humanoid debate is also really interesting because. Yes, I agree that we will not see humanoids in construction sites in the near-term future. However, you could for example, we went and done a mini documentary with this company called Kubi, and their business model is they set up a factory nearby a construction site. They manufacture all of the components that go into a house into a flat pack form, and then deliver that last mile to site. So. Very low skilled labor can take this out like IKEA furniture and install it on site. Now, humanoids, their system is perfectly set up for humanoids for the manufacturing part because everything is process driven. Like they have that the whole factory is mapped out. They have certain stations. They have like procedures that if a material is running low, they use a Kanban system. So a red card will pop up and then someone knows, oh, crack, that needs to be refilled and so on and so forth. So you can massively reduce the amount of skilled labor required to build a QB project because one, eventually you have humanoids in their factories, controlled environment would be perfect for humanoids, and two, because the labor required to then take this flat packed house and install on site is very low, you're no longer relying on skilled labor in order to do that. So I find that very interesting. How about
Have
you?
you seen Bot Built yet?
I have.
It's
I've spoke to Bob.
similar in
Similar.
nature. Yeah, we buddies with Brent over there, their CEO, and I love their kind of approach because they're taking it on with timber and all sorts of, especially timber now in the United States. I don't know about overseas, but like, dude, the timber is brutal. It's bad. Like it's warped, it's bowed, it's got a different component. And so building a flat, like paneled wall in a house is really complex because of that just geometry that's shifting around. And so some of the machine learning and stuff that they've put into their robotics is really cool. And I think it'll do well for them in the long term to have that as well. I also saw, I think it was at Bauma, that there's Schindler, the elevator company. They had a robot that would go into elevator walls, like elevator shafts.
Yes.
And the track and everything.
Yeah,
that was wild. That was interesting. I'd be curious to, I think Skanska was the one that they piloted it. Be interested to see how that really worked out though. That seems, it could work. I like the idea because you're not going to be at height, Yeah.
No, I think it's interesting. I think, the whole that I can't see well, maybe there is, but the labor debate is such a fascinating one because, like we said earlier, you just you do not have a choice. Like, it has to be solved, and so they will really, really push the boundary when it comes to technology. That will be able to solve this. So we should see a lot of exciting developments, definitely within the next 10 years. I think that even within the next 7 years, it's like high double-digit percentages of the workforce that will retire. I don't know the exact figure. So,
AI's just going to take over that much. I know. So that's a whole other conversation, though.
I know, man. Well, let's wrap this up because I have pushy and don't have too much time. But how should we end? Any creative ideas? This is the part I struggle with off the cuff, actually.
Yeah, this is the struggle with off the cuff. I don't know.
So I put it straight onto you.
Yeah, put it on me. All right. Well, cool. I'll answer our megaphone question that we always do on our podcast then.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say from the technology perspective, remember that at the end of the day, it relies on the people that you're building it for. Right. So now we're moving to this place where AI is going to start helping us with a lot of stuff. But at the end of the day, for right now, we still need human interaction. And so you need to be focused in on like, how can your product be enhanced for the users, and just be absolutely religious about how you can enhance that for them. That's the thing that's going to make or break your product. And also, it's not technology that is ultimately going to solve all of the problems in the industry. It's the people that operate the technology. It's the people that are building the technology. So it's still a people industry. Let's focus in on making them happier, healthier, and making the industry a better place. So there you go. There's
wonderful.
There's one way to end it.
That's how we do it, my friend. And with that, we shall end there. Thank you, Tyler.
Thanks, Owen. I appreciate you, man.
Okay.